Hi, my name is Axel Albrecht. I'm part of the product management team for SAP Cloud Platform Integration Suite, and I welcome you to session Dev 203, Migrating Integration Services from the Neo environment to multi-cloud. First, I'll give you an introduction into the SAP Cloud Platform Integration Suite before we talk about migrating. I have prepared two demos for you, and after that, I'll summarize the key takeaways, and we're done. So, let me try to give you an orientation. The Intelligent Suite, which is a suite of applications covering all enterprise services like HR with SuccessFactors, travel expense with Concur, B2B with Ariba, enterprise resource planning with S4. This suite sits together with the industry clouds on top of the business technology platform. The key pillars of the business technology platform are analytics, data management, intelligent technologies, as well as integration. Today, we focus on the SAP Cloud Platform Integration Suite, which is as part of the SAP Cloud Platform, part of the business technology platform. The integration suite is the modular integration platform as a service. The key capabilities are cloud integration for end-to-end process integration, be it SAP to SAP or SAP to non-SAP, be it on-premise or on cloud. We have API management for the API-led integration. It allows you to manage your end-to-end life cycle of your APIs. We have enterprise messaging for an event-driven architecture. We have the integration advisor that will allow you to have an AI-driven approach for your B2B integration. With open connectors come 160 plus connectors for non-SAP integration. On top of those core capabilities of the integration suite, we have the so-called Netflix for integrations on the SAP API Business Hub. These are pre-packaged content packages cutting across all intelligent enterprise scenarios like lead to cache, digital compliance, and so on. And even our integration clouds, like the SAP Ariba Procurement B2B cloud or the Logistics Business Networks cloud, Pharma Network, PEPL for the European Union, all those industry clouds also use our capabilities of the integration suite and enable their LOB users to run those services without becoming an integration expert themselves. And all of these capabilities come as a fully managed multi-cloud offering. I will talk about it in a second. So, why do we think that the SAP Cloud Platform Integration Suite is a comprehensive, versatile, and enterprise-grade offering? Because it covers all aspects of the integration. For A2A or application-to-application integration, we offer thousands of integration packs or flows, as well as APIs, and hundreds of connectors. You can model and monitor everything in a web user interface. In the context of B2B, we provide you lots of libraries for B2B standards like Edifactor X12. We also provide the user machine learn-based recommendations for mappings. Business to governance, very important topic. We provide you with our integration content, the digital compliance, and we take care of all legal changes. Our solutions are natively integrated with S4 and ECC. If you're doing business to consumer, which is usually an API-led integration, we provide you with secure user propagation and API security best practices. For event-driven integration, we have enterprise messaging as well as functions. If you're applying the emerging pattern of the digital integration hub architecture, which is for high-performance APIs, we provide you with an in-memory cache that will replicate the data. And last but not least, for digital economy, We provide you API monetization. You can get an integration with SAP subscription billing. And via a developer portal, you can engage with your developers and partners. I mentioned that the whole capabilities or the whole integration suite comes as a fully managed multi-cloud offering. What do I mean with this? First of all, you can choose the integration provider of your choice, whatever fits best to your needs, be it Microsoft Azure, be it AWS, or be it Alibaba Cloud. Whenever you want to enter a new market or a new region, those cloud providers might be there already. And maybe you are already using their assets. So then it makes absolutely sense to also bring the integration suite there and integrate with those assets. Because no matter where you will design and model your integration scenarios, be sure that they will run on all the platforms. Via the SAP Cloud Platform Cockpit, you have a central place where you can manage all your deployments. And as you only pay what you're using, you have the costs under full control. Okay, now that you know the benefits of the SAP Cloud Platform Integration Suite multi-cloud offering, you might want to consume it. And if you have existing Neo systems running, you might ask yourself how to get to the new world. All right, so let's talk about migrating. Migration is nothing new. Already the American geographer Ellsworth Huntington said that even history can be seen as a record of migrations. Usually, migrations happen in certain phases. We have the evaluation, where you check your existing setup. And then you do a plan, like how you want to migrate or where you want to go, etc. You prepare yourself by getting the right people and everything ready. And then you send some test balloons, testing the new environment if everything is fine there. If you think it's good, then you do the migration. And then you adapt to the new environment. So how would we now adapt those phases to a migration for the SAP Cloud Platform Integration Suite? Well, first of all, check your existing systems. What are your integration scenarios? What are your APIs? Who are your consumers? Because those you might need to change later. Then create a side-by-side migration strategy. I'll talk about that later. Do the preparation by setting up the integration suite on your new environment and migrate your artifacts like key stores, credentials, but also integration scenarios or APIs to the new environment. And then test the new environment if everything works fine or if there's still some stuff missing. When you're happy, switch your clients to point to the new location. And then hopefully you're ready and it's time to tear down the old systems. So I mentioned side-by-side strategy or migration strategy. What do I mean with this? Well, first of all, you have your existing setup where your consumers still consume the old Neo environment. So step one is you bring up the integration suite on Cloud Foundry or multi-cloud. And then you copy all your artifacts to this new world without changing and touching your consumers. And only once you're done with testing and so on and setup, then you switch your consumers to the new environment. By this, you can go at your own pace and you can decide when to switch what. By this, you minimize the downtimes for your consumers. Depending on how big your existing systems are, how many integrations you have, how many APIs you have, copying all the items can be effort. And therefore, we want to support you with this. We have created migration accelerators. one for API management and one for cloud integration, which will take care of copying the majority of the integration artifacts like API proxies or API providers, prepackaged content, including the configuration, custom integration, etc. There are also items that we cannot migrate automatically, which are two types of items. One is runtime data, like monitoring data, quota information, but also content like payloads that you have stored in your data store or JMS queue. These you need to migrate yourself. Also, sensitive data like credentials or private keys, etc. These we cannot migrate automatically. Once you're done with all the migration steps, you have to do the last mile. First, check the account. If you have, for example, set up a cloud connector, you need to do this again on your target environment. If you have used principal propagation or single sign-on, and if you have created custom roles and the assignment, all those items you need to repeat as well on the new environment. As I mentioned, maybe you still have payloads stored in the data store or JMS queue. Before you switch your consumers live on the new environment, make sure to empty those stores on the old one. If you are using integration flows that use scripts, and those scripts are consuming environment variables, make sure to adapt them on the new environment. If you want to set up a custom domain, now it's the time to do this. So, and once you're done with all those last mile steps, then it's time to push the button and to switch your custom domain to point to the new area or to the new environment. And if you do not have custom domains, then it's time to switch your consumers to the new target. So that's about the theory. I have, as mentioned, prepared two demos, one for the migration accelerator for cloud integration and the other one for API management. So let's start with the demo of the migration accelerator for cloud integration.
Our starting point is the help portal under CP Migration Guide, which brings us to all the relevant information that we need. We open the section Migrating Your Scenario Components Migration Packs, and there we search the section for SAP Cloud Platform integration. We open the SAP node, which will bring us to all the information. Here we offer 2 downloads, and for this demo I have chosen to use the migration using OAuth authentication. So when unpacking the zip, it contains a guide and multiple Postman collections. We open the guide to get the first overview. As you can see, the document will take care of all the phases, but first let's take a look into the tenants. So this one is our Neo tenant. It has a few packages, multiple custom packages, but also standard content, like in this case for document service. Also, we have multiple security material and certificates. Now let's jump to the Cloud Foundry tenant, which is this one. And as you can see, there is no package available yet. And also if we check the operations view, there is nothing deployed and nothing available except of the SAP pre-delivered certificates. So let's jump into the guide again. We use Postman, and in order to get this, we open postman.com/downloads in order to download the app. Once we have downloaded the app, we can start importing the collections that we got from the zip file. How to do the import? Via the import button and then upload files. You select every available collection and that's it. So when we take a look into those collections, we can see that they use environment variables in order that you do not need to enter certain information for every request. where to fill those environments, you simply use this drop-down in the upper right corner and select CPI migration settings, and then with the environment you can see the content. Here we check. So there you see host and token host OAuth stuff for the source and for the target information. So now the question where to get this from. Let's start with the source section. The tenant host is of course clear because this is the one that we want to migrate, but now where to get the token host and the OAuth information. For this we go to the SAP Cloud Platform cockpit of our Neo tenant. And there under security we have the OAuth section. So on the first tab we already see the URLs that we need to enter in the token host. And then under clients, you have to register a new client. We have done this already for this demo. So what's important, this ID gets generated, you will use it for your OAuth ID. And if you then give a secret, this will be the, this you also have to enter. Make sure that you have the right subscription for your tenant and also that you have the authorization grant client credentials. In order to ensure that you can use this token for the whole migration, use a proper lifetime. Now what we need to do in addition is to take this ID and to give the user OAuth underscore client underscore and then the ID the proper authorizations, which are the administrator role and the integration developer role. And of course, all the information that you need for this are mentioned here in this guide. So now we can enter all those information, as you can see, and then we are done for the source side. The same we have to do now for the target side. The target host is of course clear. It's the tenant that we want to migrate, and for everything else we come here into the Cloud Platform cockpit of our Cloud Foundry environment. We go to the service instance, and in the upper right corner you can create an instance for the service process integration with the API plan. And inside this service instance you have to create a service key. I have done this already, and here you get the client ID, the client secret, and as well the token URL. And also the proper authorizations are mentioned in the guides. Alright, with this we have done all the preparation steps, so let's quickly execute our connectivity test collection. You simply open this in Postman, click on Run, and once it's opened, you can click the button, and then we do a connection check to see if both tenants are available and the information can be extracted. Great, so this was successful. Now let's do the readiness check. If both tenants are in a good shape, that we can do the migration. So also here, everything passed. In case there is something not ready, I have done a screenshot to show you such a scenario as well. How this would look like. Here, for example, in this case, there's one failed, and it says this package cannot be migrated because there is an artifact in draft state. If you have such a situation, you can always go back into your tenant, give it a proper version, and then just repeat this test. And once we are done and everything is green, we can execute with the next collection to transport the prepackaged content. While the migration is running, it's also worth to mention that all the configurations that you have done for the prepackaged content as well as for the custom content is also migrated. So 14 execute calls passed, no one failed, perfect. So we can just continue with the custom content. And don't be confused by any HTTP response codes. Important is alone the green traffic light at the end of the execution. So every execution successfully passed. Great. So now let's move on to the value mappings. Okay, also green. Great. And then finally the certificates. Good. Everything completed. And with this, we have done the migration. So let's check the new tenant. First, we check the old one. As you have seen, there were 12 packages. So let's check the new one. This is now the Cloud Foundry one. And as you can see, everything was successfully migrated. And also on the operations view, what we will see is that the key store now contains all your certificates that you need for your communication. Now you can go ahead and do the post-migration steps like deploying the credentials and then deploying also the migrated flows.
All right, and we immediately switch to the second demo, which will show us the migration accelerator for API management.
Starting point is again CP Migration Guide in our help portal. We go to Migration Packs, and this time, not like in the previous run, we go to API Management. And there we will get a link to the API Management documentation in the section of the Migration Assistance. We go to prerequisites, where you get all the information for the source system, like what users you need with the roles, and then also we find the prerequisites for the target system, which user is required, with what roles, and also it's important to enable the API access plan for the API portal as well as for the developer portal. And then in the next section, we have the link to the tool, which we download. Whereas the migration of the cloud integration elements is based on Postman collections, for API management, this is done by a tool. When you unzip the content, you will find the following items. In the lib folder, you will find a few pre-shipped open source libraries, which SAP has customized. Then there is a JSON file for containing all the configurations, and there are download dependency files. Now let's open the PowerShell. You simply do this by typing PowerShell into the address field of your Windows Explorer, if you're using Windows. Now let's go back to the help document and check the guidelines. So under prerequisites of the tool, you find a list of the contained files. Copy, depending on your operating system, the file name, and then check the corresponding system descriptions. So as I'm using Windows, I am typing / and then download dependencies, which will now download the rest of the open source libraries which we need to execute the tool. This will take a few seconds, and then we can see the result. So the download is done. Let's check the lib folder. As you can see, there are now plenty of other libraries. So with this, the prerequisites are complete and we can check the configuration file. As you can see, it contains two sections. One is the source for the API portal and the dev portal, both configured using basic authentication. You can provide a password here, but you don't need to. If you don't do this, then you will be prompted while executing. Also, you have the target section for the API portal as well as for the dev portal. And as you can see here, we are using an OAuth client for this, for both URLs, for both services. So now let's see where to get those OAuth clients. We go again into the Cloud Platform cockpit of the target services. There, under Service Instance, you can, in the upper right corner, create a new instance for enabling the API access. Also, this is described in the help guide. I have already created the instances, so now we can view the service keys, and there you get all the information that you can simply paste into the JSON configuration file. This was for API portal, and we do the same for the dev portal. So, and with this we have configured the JSON file, and now let's have a look into the API portal of this is our Neo environment, and as you can see we have 30 APIs, 12 products, 4 applications and 10 policy templates. In addition, we have a few configurations like API providers, certificates, key value maps, and in our dev portal, also the Neo tenant, we also have some subscriptions created. The target tenant is on Cloud Foundry, and as you can see, there is no design time element available. Let's check the developer portal. There's as well everything empty. So now let's run the migration. But first, let's check the guide how to proceed. Under procedure, we will find some information what to do next. And let's first verify the setup by using the command, which is given here. As you can see, the version you have to fill out. So check for this, the version of the downloaded zip file. So in my case, it's 1.1.1. So you get this when unpacking, for example, from the folder name or from this downloaded zip file. So let's execute and see if we have done everything right, if the configuration is fine, if the authorizations are good. Looks good. Now, what is the guide saying now? We can simply proceed with the clone process. And to execute the migration, we simply reuse the same command, just removing the verify at the end. Now we will be executing the migration, and you can see for every item some status like success, or maybe there are some secure elements with passwords, etc., where you need to do later certain actions. So we are done with the migration. Now let's verify. So here we are again on our Cloud Foundry API portal. And as you can see, we have transferred all the design time elements. The same for the developer portal. All the subscriptions are now available. So, as you can see then in your folder, we do have additional files. The important one, the most important one, is an Excel file, which will contain for every entity group a separate tab, which gives the status of the migration of these items. And the very important part is at the very end, because these are the user actions. That means certain items, for example, the passwords, etc., you have to do as a post-migration step. Also, there's a second file, which is a log, which is simply a summary of the performed migration. And that's it.
All right. As you have seen, both accelerators are a bit different, but both will help you migrating your integration artifacts to the new world. Key takeaways. First of all, check your existing scenarios, what APIs you have, what flows you have, what items will be migrated by our accelerators, and which items you have to migrate yourself. If you have any questions, be it about migration, be it about the integration suite, be it about licensing, reach out to us. Then start setting up the new environment and bring all your integration artifacts to the new world. And once this is done and you're happy with testing, do the switch and don't forget to shut down the old systems in order to save money. All right, I hope I could give you a good introduction into the SAP Cloud Platform Integration Suite multi-cloud offering, and now you know how to get there. If you want to know more information about the integration suite, then check out session Dev 202 Integration Suite, the big picture. And if you're a PIPO customer, maybe you have also thoughts of, okay, I want to bring my on-premise scenarios to the cloud, but how can I do this? Then check out session Dev 209, where we will present you certain patterns that you might know from PIPO and how to realize them on the cloud platform integration. If you want to continue your learning experience from the SAP TechEd 2020, check out our SAP Learning Hub. Get your free access and subscribe to deepen and validate your solution skills. So, having said this, thank you very much for attending the session. Stay safe and stay integrated using the SAP Cloud Platform Integration Suite. Thank you.
you.